when you get to that point where it's like, I am not needed in the restaurant at all, personally, that is a wonderful spot to be in. Now, I'm not suggesting in any way that I never go to the restaurant at all. It's just, then what do you do with your time? And what I choose to do is really just pour into our team and just do as much leadership stuff as I can. Not management, not operations, but leadership.
Representing Franchise Secrets, Erik Van Horn.
Jon, welcome to the show.
Appreciate it. It's good to connect here. Good to connect. I'm excited to chat here a little bit. Been listening to a couple of your previous podcasts. I know a lot of folks interested in some AI topics, among other things. So happy to share our experience with our franchise at Chick-fil-A, as well as maybe some thoughts on AI.
Dude, I think both of those are hot topics. I love AI. I just getting into Grokbot in the last day or two. I think it's been out for like 2 or 3 days. So I'm getting into that. We can talk
You're
about.
Way behind, man. Yeah, you're way behind.
Well, that's probably a smart thing. We can talk about why, you don't always need to jump into the latest and greatest thing too. We can also, I'd like to start with Chick-fil-A. I see so many things. People are like, Chick-fil-A, it's not a franchise. You talk about a franchise in the franchising world, and you mention Chick-fil-A, and people are like, that's not a franchise. And I don't think people really understand. Like, Chick-fil-A is freaking amazing. I've been to their corporate headquarters, spent some time with their top leadership in this private event that I did with John Maxwell there. There's just a handful of us, probably like 20 of us at Chick-fil-A headquarters for the day, and just met some of their top people. If John Maxwell's coming in, you get to meet some of the top people. So we toured everything, and I'm like, if franchisors could go spend a day at Chick-fil-A headquarters, they would come away with a different view of what the bar should be set. But they have a different model than what most people would consider a franchise. It's more of an operator model. So let's get into some of that. But tell me about your story. How'd you get involved in Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, be happy to. To be honest, I'm a little frustrated. Nobody called me that John Maxwell was going to be at the support center. It seems like someone should have sent me a text. I could have found some time. So a little frustrated at that. But anyways, yeah, thanks for teeing it up, Erik. I appreciate it. So name's John, originally from South Florida, was born and raised down here near Miami. When I was 18, I had a chance to join the Army. So I went off to West Point, which is our military academy. If you're familiar with Army football, Navy football, and some of those type topics, I had a chance to go to Army and participate in football there. Don't worry about how many games we won. That's not too important. But after graduating there, I had a chance to start my military career. We moved, I think, 12 or 13 times, lived all over the country, lived in Europe for a little while, in Germany, which was cool. Had a chance to go to war in Afghanistan, which was not as much fun as Germany was. And so you definitely grow up real quick when you go to war. Had a chance to go back to West Point, and I was a teacher there. I was in what's called the Department of Systems Engineering. They had a class called Project Management. And the reason I share that is I had a fellow instructor got pulled away for an opportunity at the Pentagon, and we needed someone to help me out to finish the semester. And they said, there's a gentleman, Colonel Coker, out of the Army Reserve out of Georgia. He can come up and help you out. So Colonel Coker shows up and, hey, sir, he outranks me. So I salute him. And I was like, what's your full-time job then? If you're in the Army Reserve part-time, what is your full-time job? He said, I work at Chick-fil-A at their corporate headquarters in Atlanta. And of course, I love the product. And I'm so thankful you shared what you just shared a second ago, Erik, about the headquarters and kind of visiting and seeing behind the curtain a little bit. And so part of my story is a year after I met that gentleman, I went to just go visit, at that point, a mentor of mine. He changed my life. I had a chance to go visit him at the support center, and we walk in, and I'm telling you, within the first 10 minutes, it was just different. Like something was kind of strange. I think the first thing was our mission statement is actually on a plaque right outside the building. And so our mission statement is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us, and to have a positive influence on all who come into contact with Chick-fil-A. And just something for me personally, glorifying God and helping people, that was a big part of my own mission statement. So now I have a business that aligns with my personal mission statement. I went in and it was just one conversation after another. Again, I'm in the military. A lot of people, thank you for your service. Here's a Chick-fil-A coin, military coin they were presenting. And it was just a day that I was blown away. And I went back to my hotel room that night and I applied to be a Chick-fil-A operator. Really no idea what that even is. And here's what's crazy. I had no intention of getting out of the Army at any point in the next 10 years, if not 20 years. I just felt so called to try to join this organization. Was just blown away. And I can go on with that story for a little bit longer, but I did apply in 2019. Fast forward a few years, we ended up getting selected in 2023 to open our Chick-fil-A in Miami in 2024. So we just crossed over the 2-year mark, and it's just been a wonderful journey.
Who was your mentor that you went to go see, and how did that mentor impact you?
Yeah, so originally it was Colonel Coker. In the military, you almost never know someone's first name. You just know their rank and whether or not you're saluting them or they're saluting you. And so he showed up and he just said, "Hey, John, would love to grab a coffee with you." And so we sat down, and it was not Captain Harmeling at the time. It was John or Jonathan. And like, who's your wife? Like, what are your guys' goals? Like, how can I help? Tell me about your kids. Tell me about all the places you've been. What are your next, steps you're trying to achieve in your. He just took such an interest in me as a human, not just as a soldier. And I was just so kind of blown away. And of course, there's wonderful leaders throughout the military, but it was just really interesting. This guy I just met a few minutes ago, we've spent an hour, and all he's done is just ask, like, it felt like he genuinely cared about me. And it turns out he definitely does. We still stay in touch to this day. But I had a chance to visit him at the support center. And I remember he brought me in and I said, "Hey, hey, sir, good to see you." And he's like, "All right, hey, here it's Rob. It's not Colonel Coker, it's Rob." And so he let me call him by his first name. And so he just escorted me around. We had a chance to meet some of the leaders of Chick-fil-A, and you would have thought I was the biggest deal, like walking down the hallway. As we walked away, Rob told me that they're actually a pretty big deal, and you probably could read about them in Forbes magazine and some of those things. And even that, some of the owners of all of Chick-fil-A, the original founding family, I actually watched them walk out into the parking lot. They just saw some trash and just went over and picked it up and, just clean it up, put some and just put it in their pocket and threw it away. And again, it was just kind of this strange, like, here is one of the most successful people in all of America right now, worth very high amount according to Forbes, and he's out there picking up trash in the parking lot, and nobody's watching him except me from a distance. And it was just such a small but clear demonstration of servant leadership. And again, it's one of many reasons that I was just so drawn to the brand.
I remember hearing the story, kind of like the guerrilla marketing story of the cows. Where did the cows coming in with like at a basketball game? Do you remember that story? How that?
I'm not sure about this. Oh, keep going. I'm sorry.
No, please.
I'm not sure about that specific story. I do know we have a number of our cows. I'm surrounded by them. I've got all kinds of cows all over the place, and there's one over my shoulder. That's about a 2 or 3 foot cow over my left shoulder there. But yeah, a lot of times we'll take them out to basketball games and we'll put little parachutes on the cows. And if something happens during the game, we might throw them out and they kind of parachute down. And of course, all the cows say eat more chicken, because the more chicken you eat, the less cows you eat. So they're one of our perfect ambassadors, which is really cool. A funny story for you, Eric. Last week, I had a family from London came to town. There is no Chick-fil-A near them, at least not yet. And they showed up and just said, "Excuse me, is this chicken made from cow? I don't understand." And so I laid everything out. It made a lot more sense for them. But it was just a good, kind-hearted conversation.
What is it about Chick-fil-A that you think is most misunderstood in the world of franchising or business?
Yeah, great question. I would say, and this is based off a lot of people that come to my restaurant and either want to buy my business or want to buy into Chick-fil-A and set up 10 Chick-fil-A's, and they have an unlimited bank account. They can do whatever they want. And so our business model is definitely a lot different than a lot of, your viewers and listeners are used to. So for us, it is an operator business model. I personally do not own the land, the building, the equipment. I truly am just an operator, and I go and I run the best business that I can. But it's not something I can sell to you, Eric, if I pass away. It's not something that goes in my will and goes to my child or to my son in this case, or my wife. And so we truly are supposed to be good stewards of the business that has been entrusted to us. And it's a lot different than some other franchise models. This is not a passive income. This is not a send me my check every month. Like, we are expected to be actively involved in the restaurant on the dotted line, we sign our name next to, I promise to give my best effort at the restaurant. Now, what does best effort mean? Right? A little bit of a gray area there. And so, however, I think the wrong answer is if you walk into any Chick-fil-A restaurant and ask any of the 80, 90, 120 team members there, who's the owner of this restaurant? If they don't know, that's probably not your best effort. Like, you're expected to be very actively involved. And we do think that's kind of our secret sauce, to use a, pun intended, I guess, but an actively involved operator who is also financially incentivized to run a great business. So we do split net profit with Chick-fil-A if you are profitable. And
So
so we are incentivized to get after and just run the best business that we can.
I think the average unit volume at Chick-fil-A is just under 10 million. I think some of the top ones are around 20 million. I've seen what appear to be some of the top ones, and it's just a machine. But that's kind of what I've seen out there. You don't have to comment on that. I just want to kind of give the listeners a little bit of sense of that. Is there any thoughts on that in terms of, like, I know you're known for having high average unit volumes, but just so the audience can have a sense compared to some of the other things out there. So any color on that?
Yeah, and definitely I would also share, there's some restaurants and locations that are nowhere near as high volume as well and stuff. So it definitely runs the gamut. It definitely goes to the operator and his or her leadership and how well they run the restaurant. But the one thing I would say is it's hard. Like, it's stinking hard. And if it means anything, that's coming from a guy that at my previous job, at war, people would shoot at you while you're doing your job. That was hard. But I'm also saying, running a Chick-fil-A, we'll serve hundreds of people in a single hour. So, I mean, that means every product needs to be in place. Every machine needs to be, locked in, ready to go. Every team member needs to be trained, at least to a certain extent at that point, to be able to facilitate all that. What about parking? What about trash? Do the water sprinklers go? Is your landscape? I mean, I know your viewers know all this, but someone said the other day, it's very much like watching a graceful swan swim across a pond, and it's so graceful on top, but down under the surface, those legs are paddling as hard as they can, and they're really trying to get after it. So, for us, one of my favorite roles is just to be at the restaurant. I just float around and just try to stamp out any kind of bottlenecks. And so if it's anything from cars cannot physically exit the property, I'll step out in traffic and I'll direct traffic. If it's something where we ran out of sauces, I'm going to run to the back and get you some more sauces. Is the toilet, overflowing? Is that machine not working now? Is our freezer just went? I mean, we've had so many different challenges and issues. And so I just love being there, just trying to help facilitate and close out any bottlenecks.
So I understand that, like, and that's probably part, I'm guessing that is not like, hey, this is the highest and best use of my time to go, unplug a toilet or pick up some trash, but it's also part of the culture, and the culture, having an established culture like that is a high value of your time. So it's not about picking up the trash. It's about that
That's
being
right.
part of the culture. Correct me if I'm wrong. How do you see that?
No, you nailed it. I mean, that's servant leadership at its core, right? One of the worst phrases to ever hear one of my team members say is, "That's not my job," or "That's for one of the new hires." And it's like, no. If you have the owner or my wife and she's, doing something that's gross, or, or something to that effect, like, if we're doing it, we expect that you should be doing it too. And if you don't align with that culture, then maybe this isn't, the best, we're not the best fit for you. And I'd be happy to talk through some other options, and, we can see them on their way perhaps to another opportunity. So, yeah, you're exactly right. That's a huge part of our culture. And one of the things I do think is, if you get your culture in place, folks that do not fit in start to stand out much more clearly. So we've had a couple new hires that came in, fantastic interview, wonderful conversation. And within even a first few days, it's just something was off. It just wasn't. When we're going to coach and we're going to try to help, get some folks in, but we've had a few times where at the end of the first week, it's just like, I don't think this is a good fit. Let's find a good, caring way to maybe help you, find another employment somewhere else in town.
Give me the quick, like, how do you, I mean, within the first week, most people are keeping people longer than they should. How do you identify that so quickly? And then what does that conversation look like to help them move on?
Yeah, I mean, there's some things you can teach and some things you can't, right? And so, if someone comes in and they're, in a bad mood or cussing or yelling or not being a good team member, or we're like, hey, Erik, it's lunch rush on Friday. Like we need to get going. This is not a chill kind of hangout job and chit chat. Like let's get going. And if we start to see that some of the coaching is just not landing, and it's been multiple times, and we've also had multiple observations, excuse me, and it's just, it's just not working, then at some point, I think it's the loving thing to do is to part ways sooner than to try to figure out how do you keep a square peg in a round hole type situation. Now, it could be one of those, maybe you have the right person on the bus, but they're just in the wrong seat. And so maybe there's a chance where we thought you would be wonderful in the front of house and interacting with guests, and it just seems like that's just not quite there. Maybe you'd be a wonderful fit in the back of house, and maybe you can crank out some of our wonderful prep items and some salads and some wraps, or maybe you could help with dishes or be on fries. I mean, there's so many different jobs that we can try to assign someone. And so we really do try our best before we let someone go, is to see if there's any way we can kind of make this work. And if you think about it, a lot of our team members, it's their first job, right? No one's ever really talked to them about being on time for work, right? Nobody's really talked to them about being on your cell phone and not cussing or getting angry or yelling at a guest. There's so many things where for us, it might be just natural, but for someone who's never maybe had a job before, this is the first time they've ever had a chance to have someone coach and mentor them. So that's also part of our ministry for my wife and I as well. We always like to say we're not in the chicken business, we're in the people business. And so for me, we have 88 team members on our team. They represent 19 different countries, which is such a cool statistic. South Florida truly is a melting pot, and just so many amazing stories, literally American dream type stories we rub shoulders with every day. And we do not take it for granted that is our ministry, is to really care for our team. And if we can care for our team, I genuinely believe that our team is going to care for our guests. And so that's how we approach that there.
How many countries did you say?
19.
So I think that represents a whole population of South Dakota. I think there's like 19 different countries represented in my entire state.
Yeah, it's really neat. When someone joins our team, I get a chance to sit down with them one-on-one, just hear their story, hear their goals, and then also just kind of ask them about their background, their family. Do you represent any other countries outside the United States? And it's been really neat where it's like, hey, Erik is from, Colombia. Actually, I know 3 others at our team that are also from Colombia. Hey, come here, guys. There might be a chance that you guys have some, a similar background. It's like, what a great way to potentially arrive in America, right? And now you're being connected with like-minded folks that know everything about your home country because they're also from the same home country. So just leadership-wise and culture-wise, that's been really helpful for us.
So someone like myself, like, I don't enjoy working in the businesses. I understand it from a truly as an owner, that's what you do. And when I was an operator in some of these franchises and businesses that I've owned, I was the same way. Not to the level of what the normal Chick-fil-A operator is, because I think there's a higher bar that they have, better training, but I'd pick up the trash. I would do all of those things. And it's from a culture standpoint. And it's just who I am. I'll do that anyway, but that's who you want to attract. But I love working on the business. And so you can't be in the business picking up trash all the time. You got to work on the business. So from your personal philosophy or perspective on working on the business, and even Chick-fil-A's philosophy as you as an operator, where does working on the business come into play?
Yeah, great point, great question. So just my normal daily routine, I shouldn't say daily, but when I do go to the restaurant, because there are some days I just need a day of either admin or having some meetings, hanging out with folks like yourself, or just even taking a day off. But when I do go into the restaurant, I do definitely want to be there for the rushes. So your lunch rush, your dinner rush, that's a great opportunity to help facilitate operations, and also to meet guests and hang out with guests, to encourage team members when things get a little bit overwhelming and the line's out the door and the cars are wrapped around the building. And so, but for me, I do think there's a couple opportunities here. One is just servant leadership. I'm going to go around when I enter the building. I physically either fist bump or give, we use our hands to make food, so we can't touch. So we'll do a little elbow to each other. A quick, what's up? How are you? Greet every single person who's in the restaurant. My wife does something very similar, but she hugs every person in the restaurant. And then we get to work. And so for me, it's just, I'll usually arrive. I'll check for trash around the building, say hi to my team. Pop out into the dining room, see how operations are going, see if there's any guests that need anything, stick my head in both of the bathrooms, We have 2 single-use bathrooms just to spot check and make sure everything's good. And then I'll usually just do some servant leadership type stuff. We'll be on sauces. We'll make some shakes. We'll run orders out to curbside. We'll take out the trash. Once the lunch rush is over, that's when I love to do a lot of our one-on-one kind of meetings and just check in on the team, check in on them as people, not just a number on a spreadsheet, not just some labor cost, but the actual person and what goal they're working on, which has been really good. And then also, I think it's really important. Something I learned from one of my colonels I work from, he would pop in and pop out with no schedule at all. And so sometimes I would show up to work in the military at 5 a.m. and the colonel standing there to welcome me in. I'm like, okay, I'm glad I was on time. That's good. And I was in uniform and clean shaven. And some other times he would stay until the last person left the building cleaning. And so that's also something I try to do, is be there early in the morning before sunrise to welcome the team in, bring them some coffee, some donuts. Thanks for your hard work. I see you. That alarm goes off at 5 a.m. That's most of your peers are still sleeping. And then also stay through the very end. You know, if we got to clean the building afterwards, just making sure we're there with those team members as well. And so that way, I think you really do keep your finger on the pulse of the culture of the restaurant. What I never want to do is John is only there on Monday, Wednesday, Friday for lunch, or some crazy, very specific schedule. So I'm kind of all over the place, but that's also very intentional. I pop in and I pop out whenever the business needs me, of course, but then also at other times, because I want to look every single one of my employees in the eye at some point every week.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees. There are 2 really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You can join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisee and you want to be around a community of successful Zs and other brands and in other industries, this is why I created the Franchisee Mastermind. If you want access to the best single and multi-unit owners to know what they're doing, or if you want to be around other multi-brand owners, then you'll want to check out my Franchisee Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections, to each other. They want a shortcut success, both short-term and long-term. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com.
I got an off-the-wall question. Can you just take vacation whenever you want to take vacation? Because an entrepreneur can just go and like, hey, like if we want to go to Europe next week, we can just go to Europe next week. How much, if it's like a job where you can't do that at Chick-fil-A, and how much can you just like, hey, we can just go do what we want. We can go take a week, and it doesn't have to be like next week, but like if you want to next month go on a week-long vacation, can you do that? How does that work?
Yeah, you definitely can, contractually and all of that, like no problem at all. It's more of just a leadership type question. So have we gotten to a point where John can step out of the building and the building doesn't burn, and the food continues to go out to our guests, and it's still a very high level of excellence there? I'll tell you, I was not comfortable taking a single day off for the first 3, 4, call it 6 months. I'd go in on Sundays as well. We don't sell any food. Our business is all Chick-fil-A's are closed on Sunday, but that's a great chance to fix your machines, switch out the light bulbs, touch up paint, whatever you got to work on. So, I mean, you're all in. I told my wife it's almost like a deployment, for the first 6 months. You're not going to see me for a while. But then once you get to a point that all of your, as soon as the more I started to step back, the more my leaders started to step up. And so it's a matter of really just empowering and resourcing my leaders. They have a business credit card. They have the autonomy to make decisions. They have the digital access to go in and do the schedule and pay the bills, reply to customer, concerns or issues or feedback. And so when you get to that point where it's like, I am not needed in the restaurant at all, personally, that is a wonderful spot to be in. Now, I'm not suggesting in any way that I never go to the restaurant at all. It's just, then what do you do with your time? And what I choose to do is really just pour into our team and just do as much leadership stuff as I can. Not management, not operations, but leadership. And so we have some of our folks that just want to learn to speak English. We have some folks that want to go to college next year. They want to learn how to drive. They're working through some immigration documentation for their families. Some folks want to get into cybersecurity. I mean, I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a police officer. We've had 4 guys this last year join the military which I'm excited about. Unfortunately, it wasn't the Army, but the other ones are okay as well. Um, I think you know what I'm saying. It's just like, how do we know how we can lead our team unless we're very intentional to have those one-on-one conversations? And some of those conversations, a lot of my team, English is not their first language, and so it even creates some unique challenges there to communicate. So, but to answer your question, I can go on vacation every day or no days. There's nothing from a headquarters perspective that they care about. However, if your restaurant is not performing well, and especially if you have issues and someone comes in there, we have what's called a business and relationship lead. It's basically a liaison between the restaurant out in the field and then the corporate headquarters. If they start to notice something's trending in the wrong direction and the operator happens to only come in one day a week, that's definitely going to raise some concerns. Is that your best effort? You signed your name right here saying you would give your best effort, and things are not going too well. So it'll give you a little kick in the pants there.
That's good. That's probably just like normal good business decisions anyway. If your business is not doing well, you need to be involved in the business. If it's doing well and you are focused on the things that you need to be focused on in the business, and you can do those things, and you have good leadership in place, you have the freedom to go do other things, but the business has to be healthy. Whether you're a Chick-fil-A operator or own a franchisor, or you're a franchisee with multi different franchise companies. What are you doing with AI? I mean, when you and I first connected, two things caught my attention. 2 words: Chick-fil-A and AI. I'm like, I got to meet this guy. If he's in Chick-fil-A, which we have some Chick-fil-A operators that are in the masterminds, the investing mastermind that I'm a part of, a tribe of investors, and they're multi-unit Chick-fil-A operators. I'll get them on the podcast here soon. But I was interested in having a conversation with you, Chick-fil-A, and then you're doing a lot with AI. So let's shift gears and talk AI. What are you doing with AI? How are you using it? Where are you getting the most benefit out of it? And maybe how are you using it wrong?
Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, yeah. I thought we only had 30 minutes, Eric. So, a couple of things. First off, this is just my own personal opinion. This is not anything that's come down from our headquarters. And I always want to highlight is we got to be super careful, with these tools that are coming out. So definitely protecting guest information, PII, social security numbers, all of that. So just encourage folks that are dabbling, be extremely cautious to be, keep the human in the loop. I think that's super important. Don't have AI do things on behalf of you or your brand that you're not fully aware of. Post something online and say on behalf of Chick-fil-A. And it's like, if you didn't have a chance to actually review it and make sure it's approved. So please just be cautious. But for me, I think our biggest thing was just automating the repeatable tasks, the admin tasks, the stuff that really doesn't require any kind of big brain analysis or thinking. I just need a human to sit on a computer and click a couple buttons to onboard a team member, to maybe offboard a team member, to review our training calendar and say, hey, Eric, your food safety training is going to expire here in 3 weeks. Here's a reminder to get it done in the next 3 weeks. And so there's just so many admin tasks that were just eating up so much of my time. And so for the last couple months, I just take a quick pause and just say, before I do this task that I've always done, is there any way that AI can supplement it or possibly even do it for me? And always check your work, right? And then definitely just be cautious of, the tasks that you're doing and the risks that you may or may not be taking. So if I accidentally told you your training expires in 3 weeks and it turns out it's 4 weeks from now, is that a huge loss? We can work through that together, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. So how do you automate the repeatable? So that was huge for us. And then what do you do with that time that you've bought back? And so I do think there's some managers out there that if AI is replacing the busy work, they're going to find more busy work. And that's why I would suggest that maybe they stay at the manager level and they don't get to the leadership level. And I'm not saying that sarcastically, but please, I beg you, if you take anything from our conversation, is the difference between a manager that focuses on tasks and a leader that focuses on people. And so I think all leaders have to be managers, but I don't think all managers are leaders. They might call themselves a leader, but you really just get stuff done. You're transactional. You're not transformational. And so to me, there's also been this kind of aha moment of how do you use AI for leadership, not management, not success, but significance. And so it's been amazing for the last few weeks. I've been just trying these different kind of prompts of, for example, AI, please build me a goal database for every single person on my team. So it would reach out to the team members on Slack, say, hey, Eric, we're so glad you're a part of the team, but I do want to just check in with you. What are some things you're working on? Like, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you passionate about? And so you would reply, I would see that information, but it would record it into the database. And so now, Erik, when you and I get a chance to do our one-on-one in 2 weeks, I actually have the goals sitting in front of me, and AI has suggested some things I can do. It's like, I know you want to grow your podcast and your tribe. I actually took some time to meet some other folks, and I'd love to connect you because I think that's going to help you achieve your goal. And so anyways, as of like 3 days ago, I now have goals for all 88 of my team members. What an amazing tool for me to be able to leverage to help you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. And for some people, they want to grow in Chick-fil-A, which I love. They want to be owner operators, which I love. They want to, maybe go to the corporate staff. But as you can imagine, a lot of folks also don't see Chick-fil-A as their full long-term, lifelong career. This is just a season of life for them. So how do I be the best stewards of them and their time? So anyways, to answer your question, AI for admin, manager stuff, getting stuff done, it's been great. But the time I've been able to save, how do I use AI for significance and really influence people?
So you're not doing agentic stuff right now, or that's not your main focus of OpenClaw, Herms, and then Grokbot just came out. You're not necessarily doing that. You're more along the lines of like, hey, I might use Grok for this thing, or chat, or Claude, and then you're giving it really good prompts and helping it organize the feedback that you're getting from your team members, and then helping you, and that helps organize and all of that helps and it giving you prompts so you can be a better leader to them, and then you just have everything kind of at your fingertips. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's pretty darn close. Yes. Let me give you an example. So same situation, two different prompts. One of the prompts I put into Claude, in this case, Claude Co-Work, is just the tool I've used at least for today, and who knows what the next best tool will be tomorrow. And it's kind of crazy to think about. This is the worst that AI tools are going to be from here forward, right? They're only going to get better, and it's mind blowing when we watch this pod next year, looking back on it and say, man, that's all it used to be able to do. But anyways, I asked Claude, I said, who on my team is at risk of going into overtime? So that's something we try to be very mindful of. We certainly don't limit it, but we want to be cognizant of folks that are about to cross over to overtime. And then that way, if needed, we can adjust schedules, or we just say, yes, that's part of it. Let's move forward. And so we had a lady that got flagged for going into overtime. She worked a double shift on a Thursday. So when she works again on Saturday, she's definitely going to cross into overtime. So the alert came back, hey, John, heads up, alert. You have an employee that's on the glide path to go into OT. And so that was 1 week. The next week, I typed into AI, my AI for significance prompt, who on my team has been overlooked and could use some encouragement. That same lady that was going into overtime was what AI had suggested that I go and pat her on the back. And the reason she worked a double shift is because one of her teammates had to go to the hospital. She decided to work a double shift to cover for her teammate, who ended up, needed to take care of some medical stuff. So two things happened. Last week it was an alert. She's not in trouble, but like, we need to be aware of her schedule this week. And then this week it's like, no, she's a hero. Like, she's helping out one of her teammates. We should give her a pat on the back. And oh my goodness, didn't anyone check on the third person who's at the hospital? Like, how did I miss this? And so it was just really interesting to use AI for success, which was focused on overtime, lowering overtime, and then to focus on AI for significance, which is influencing people. So same situation, but two different outputs. Just very fascinating to me.
So you're doing that in Claude Co-Work, which is different than chat, like not ChatGPT, but different than a chat within Claude, which is a Co-Work will actually kind of do more for you in simple terms. So give me, like, what do you have feeding into Co-Work or hooked up to Co-Work to kind of let all of that happen? Is it like Airtable, Google Sheets? What other things are connected to that for you to ask it that prompt?
Yeah, I do have it connected to a number of even just personal stuff, whether it's my email, my calendar. So another prompt might be, everything you know about me. What do you think my priorities are based on my calendar? That's kind of interesting. Is your calendar filled with one-on-ones, or is your calendar filled with, admin type tasks? That could be an interesting prompt to see what comes back there. but we do feed it, garbage in, garbage out. So we give it as much information as we can while still, of course, protecting the guest and PII and our team members and some of that information. But yeah, Google Sheets has been fascinating. Something I'm really, really trying to figure out, which has been one of my failures, is scheduling. Uh, I don't know why it has to be, there has to be a better way. So the tool we have right now is widely used. It's good. It gets the job done. But it takes like 3, 4, 5 hours to put together a schedule. And that's 5 hours of labor that I think AI can kind of do for me. And so I've been trying to crack this nut a little bit, and it's just been really difficult. So the first iteration we did, it said, it only, how to work. I said, these are our top performing team members. So it scheduled them for like 95 hours for the week. It's like, okay, so let me put in another parameter. So nobody could work more than, 40 hours a week. And then it put in those parameters, and then it hired only the folks that were paid the littlest or the least, because that would do better for my labor costs. And it's like, again, that's not, the intent. These are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. These are humans. And so we just kept going through all these iterations about how do you open? How do you get more people on the clock for lunch rush? How do you come down for the mid-afternoon lull? How do you grow again for scheduling, for dinner rush, and then taper off for closing? And it felt like it just feels like there should be a better way for it. So for us right now, we only use AI to double check our work. So after we put together a schedule, we'll have it scan and just see if there's any anomalies. Perhaps Erik was scheduled from 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. It's like, no, sorry, he's not working what is that, 20-hour shift. It was supposed to be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Let's go back and fix the schedule, because that kind of throws off our numbers. And then the other piece that's been really helpful, I would imagine for a number of our businesses, there's forecasts and then there's also actual reality. And sometimes those two efforts are very siloed off from each other. You have forecasts and then reality, but you never really go back and kind of judge where forecasts aligned with reality, where we way off or we way under. So that's been really helpful to go in and just help us kind of bridge the gap and say, typically we have been under forecasts on Fridays and Saturdays, but we've been scheduling over forecasts, Monday to Thursday in this example. So the more data you feed it, of course, the better, output you're going to get.
I think that's important. I mean, I'm doing stuff with agents and whatnot, but I think it's important to, a year ago, we didn't have all of this stuff hooked up to it. Our emails, our Gmail, our Google, our calendars, our Drive. And there's just a lot that we were not able to be hooked up the way that we are able to today, our calendars. So I've done some of that same stuff. I'm like, take a look at my calendar. Let me know where am I spending time? What should I be spending time on? Help me reprioritize stuff and whatnot. And I just recently heard a podcast with Jeff Woods. Jeff Woods is a friend of mine. He's going to be on the podcast in about a month or two to talk about what he's doing with AI. Gary Keller with Keller Williams hired Jeff to basically turn the One Thing book, the book, The One Thing that Gary wrote. It was a bestseller. It was an amazing book, but he hired Jeff to turn that book into a business. And that's exactly what Jeff did. So Jeff is an amazing guy. And when he left there, he went to work for a large company overseas, and then AI started coming out, and he jumped straight into a lot of stuff with AI. Well, today Jeff is in the boardrooms with Nike, with McDonald's, and smaller players as well. But Jeff has a really good way of using AI in a simple way, but profound way, kind of like what you're describing. And he's got some really great frameworks that we're going to get into in the podcast. But I think it's important for people today, if you're not doing anything with AI, or even if you are doing a lot with AI, to take a step back and be like, how can I just use AI from a leadership perspective? Like, I think you're the first person that's come on the podcast that says, okay, I use it, people use it for management, for KPIs and all these other things, but to be a better leader and to train up my leaders, how am I using AI from a leadership perspective? And you can feed it. You don't even have to feed it all the kinds of stuff that you used to have to feed it a year ago. We used to have to feed it books and things like that, whoever your favorite leaders are, whether it's Jocko or John Maxwell or, whoever those leaders are. But now it has access to so much more information. You can really get much better output. So I say to give it really good input on who you are, what your goals are, have it ask you questions about like who you are, what your goals are, and then feed it really good prompts, and then just continue to make iterations of it. Is that kind of how you started with this? Was the finished product of like how you're using it for leadership the original vision, or did it kind of evolve as you just started to use it?
Yeah, we'll never. I'm not sure we'll ever get to a finished product, but it's just definitely this constant, just journey over time. So I mean, originally, I would imagine every viewer right now is using AI for some sort of chat, right? Asking information, get information back. And it just keeps evolving on the things where it's not only gives you information, but it'll actually do the work for you. And so I'd really encourage you guys to, consider a Claude Co-Work or something that actually does the work for you. It doesn't just give you the information. It'll be mind blowing. I sat down with a peer of mine. We went on to Amazon.com, and I just typed in, I'm going to Miami to the beach with my 3-year-old niece. Buy some beach toys for me. And we just watched the screen as it went through and actually searched for toddler beach toys, and it shows the top 3 rated beach toys and added it to my cart. And it was just kind of like, wait, oh my goodness, it did it for me. And meanwhile, I could have been working on something else. But for me, it's just kind of been this iteration of like, let's tinker, let's just try a little bit, let's see if this works. At one point, I was spending an hour trying to force AI to get a task done that in reality would have only taken me 2 minutes to do. And so it's like, all right, maybe I could have, skipped that one, but the repeatable tasks, I think there's a great opportunity here. And something I would just encourage you and your viewers, especially folks that are in leadership position, there's such an anxiety out there right now that AI is going to take my job. And so if you're in a leadership position, I would really encourage you to just maybe pause, kind of feel out the culture and the vibe of your organization. Even just go in and say, no one here is getting replaced by AI. However, in reality, there could be an opportunity where if someone chooses to move on from your organization, perhaps they resign to go to college, or perhaps, you have to terminate them and make a difficult decision. Before you rehire someone to backfill them, just pause for a second, and maybe AI could help someone else basically cover the task that they were doing. So you could decrease your labor cost and, increase your productivity. So I think there's some opportunities there for sure.
Think everyone, if you are not using Claude Co-Work, using Claude but not Co-Work, just spend like the next 10 things that you're going to do in the chat within Claude, put it into Co-Work to see kind of what output that you get and see how it might be different. And I would just start with something like that. Last question for you, Jon, before I let you go, because I know that we've gone over. You work with a lot of young people, and I'm around a lot of young people just in my daily life. Yeah. I'm seeing they're on the fringes of AI. They know about it. Some are not taught in college. They're graduated. They're just like, don't know what to do. And what are you seeing out there with some of these young people that are out of high school, or they're in high school, or they're in college, maybe out of college, but like, how do you encourage them to use or learn AI so a year, 2 years from now, they have a better understanding of it, and they're more well-rounded, and they're more employable than they were before they used AI? Or maybe you're seeing something different too than I am. So what are you seeing?
No, I think you're spot on, Eric. And of course, it depends, who the individual is. You're going to have some young adults that are using AI to make the most ridiculous memes and funny videos and just silly stuff for content and entertainment, TikTok and all that stuff. And then you're going to have some other ones that genuinely use it as a thought partner. To me, I think that's one of the coolest tools. If you're by yourself, just put it on a chat mode. Just say, hey, I'm thinking about, should I go to college or should I just stay in the workforce? Ask me questions, until we can get to a better answer. Just have those conversations, because it is amazing some of the stuff that'll get tossed out there where it's like, hey, have you thought about the financial aspect of, going to college? What if you could be making money instead of going into debt for that? Have you thought about joining the military? Maybe the military pays for your college in part or maybe in full. Anyways, I really just encourage folks to just use it as a thought partner. I think that's a great way to get started. And to your point with folks that start tinkering, if you end up doing Claude Co-Work, maybe don't dive in completely, right? Just start with a simple task. Maybe connect something that if this goes terribly wrong, it's not going to ruin your life and your family and your business. Just start small and just watch it and just let your brain just go a little bit and just start questioning almost everything in life. And so it is very interesting. And I think business owners will appreciate this. At a Bible study we had at church this morning, we had one of our business guys. He said something along the lines of how he's being intentional to move from SEO to
AEO.
SEO to Ask Engine Optimization. Sorry, so AEO. And I was like, AEO, that's cool. Wait, what? What are you talking about? And so he ended up breaking down what is so obvious after he said it is how many folks, especially our young adults, they're not necessarily doing Google searches anymore. They're pulling up chat and saying, I'm going to Miami with my friends. Where are some good places to eat? I hope Chick-fil-A Miami Shores pops up on that. But how would AI recommend my restaurant if I have no online presence or if my reviews and my online reputation are terrible? That might be something really interesting. We talked about working in the business instead of on the business. What is your online reputation? Will AI recommend your podcast if people are searching for, whatever the topic might be? So anyways, it is just so fascinating. And I'm concerned that there's some people that are gonna kind of like we had folks that just said, I'm really, really good at the typewriter. I don't need that computer thing. It's like, okay, that's one way to approach it. And so, but I really think that, AI is just going to be such a huge part of our lives, and it is exponentially getting better, just at such a rapid rate. Really encourage folks, like, you got to get smart on it. I really think there's going to be a huge divisive kind of line in the sand. You either know how to use it decently well, or you're going to get kind of left behind. And then you throw in robotics. So now you have AI and robotics. There's a lot these robots are going to be able to do, maybe waffle fries or otherwise and stuff. So I do think our young adults need to stop scrolling mindlessly. And you have so much power in the palm of your hand. Just learn, read. There's books behind you. I got 2 towers behind me. Just keep learning, keep listening to podcasts like these and just grow. And you're going to be exponentially ahead of all your peers by the time you hit the workforce and beyond.
Jon, it's been great having you on. Love the conversation. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.